Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Friends, before we start with our lecture today, I would like to wish everybody a very big happy Hanuman Janma Utsav, a very big happy Hanuman Jayanti. And friends, only after taking his blessings, we are going to start with a new series today. As promised in my last video, we are going to start with a total income series. Now, what is going to be very special in this total income series is I am going to start with those total incomes which are asked in the exams in paragraph form. So, friends, you must have already seen my last video in which I have done exam paper analysis for CA Inter from May 24 to Jan 26. So, in the last 6 attempts, 3 times they have asked you the first question in paragraph form. Now, there is no surety that they will always ask you the question in paragraph form only. They might also ask you in T form, which is your P&L account form. But there are very few sums for practice in paragraph forms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice with you all few sums in paragraph form also. So mostly this series will go on for 3 to 4 lectures, right? So I'm planning 8 to 9 sums. Let me see how much I can cover, right? Now friends, who can take benefit of these videos? Obviously CA Inter students, they can take the benefit of this videos, and also the CA final students can also take benefit of these videos. All right. Now friends, what is the objective behind starting this series? What are we planning to achieve? So the first thing is we have to get used to the paragraph form questions. Now I have already mentioned in my last video that whenever the question number 1 of income tax is asked in paragraph form, no new knowledge is required. The same set of knowledge which you have for your PGBP, your EFOS, house property is required. But since the question is very new for the students, so they are finding it a bit difficult. So what we have to do is we have to get used to those paragraph form questions. That is my first objective, which we would achieve together. And second objective, now this is something which is very important, which I am planning in this, and that is to learn few new adjustments. So friends, what I am planning is I have got few new adjustments in PGBP total income sums, which are not there in our ICAI module sums, but they are very, very important and they might be asked in your exams. When I say new adjustments, I am not talking new concept. Okay, don't take me wrong. Concepts you would have already studied in your in your classes, regular classes. I'm not going to teach new concepts. I'm only talking about new adjustments, means new way of asking the same concept. All right. So these are my two objectives which I want to achieve with this series. Now friends, whenever you do any sum, what you should do is you should always first read the first and the last paragraph and find out what we are supposed to calculate. So I will give you an example. Say supposingly the question which you can see in your screen. So friends, this entire PDF is already there in my JB Learning's Pratik Bhatt Telegram channel. All right. So friends, what you can do is you can take that printout or the PDF, whatever you feel comfortable. So friends, what I was saying was that whenever you have a question, now whether this question is of income tax or GST, if that is not important, for any question, you should always first read the first paragraph and the last paragraph. So what happens is we can easily find out what is asked in the question. Now, for example, Miss Rashmi is engaged in the manufacturing and sale of drugs and pharmaceuticals. Its net profit for the year 31st March after debit and credit of the following items is this much. All right. Now, let us see the last paragraph also. Compute total income if shifted out of section 115 BSA. So what happens is after you read these two paragraphs, you have understood that in this particular question, they are asking us total income. All right. So this should be followed in each and every question, whether it is in income tax or whether it is in GST. Because many a times what happens is if the question is very big and we are going and reading and reading and reading and reading and reading, but we don't know what are we supposed to find out till we many a times read the last paragraph. So there is no point just reading such a big question without understanding or without knowing in advance as to what is asked. Correct. So first always read the first paragraph and the last paragraph. This is fixed for all questions. All right. Okay. Now friends, what we are going to do is we are going to start solving this question. So what I have done is I have kept this question for you all. There would be one or two very nice tricky adjustments, and then I'm going to teach you how are we supposed to present this entire question. Okay, so what I have done is I have kept a fixed format. Okay, so I have kept the format ready, and then I have not put any particulars or any amount in this. What we will do is we will do it together in this question. All right, so friends, let us start. Question 3. This is the third question which I am doing first. So I have kept two more questions. So there is one question 1, question 2 also. But question 1, question 2 are comparatively smaller questions. What I wanted to do was I wanted to first discuss a big question with you all. Alright. So let us start. Miss Rashmi. So friends, as soon as you come to know that the question is about Mr. or Miss or Mrs., then the first thing which my CA inter students should analyze, even CA final students, is that the question is about individual. Now friends, in CA inter 99% questions are based on individuals only. Sometimes now they are also asking you HUF residential status and HUF total income. But other than those exceptions, majority of the questions are for individuals. For CA final also, corporate questions are asked in question 1, but other than the question 1, they can ask you questions on individuals also. So Miss Rashmi is engaged in the manufacturing of sale and drugs. So friends, as soon as you read manufacturing, the first thought which should come in your mind is additional depreciation might be there in the question. See, it is not always necessary that they will give you some depreciation related adjustment, but at least as soon as you read the question, you should be able to analyze that yes, manufacturing, so there is a possibility of additional depreciation, right? This is only a possibility but not very sure. Its net profit for the year ended 31st March. Now starts one of the most important thing. After debit and credit of the following items. Now this is something which is very important. They are saying the net profit is 28 lakh after debiting and crediting the following items. Now friends, this is something which is very important. Now what happens in paragraph form sum is they will give you net profit in the first paragraph, but sometimes they will give you the net profit is after debiting and crediting the following items, and sometimes they will give you the net profit before debiting or crediting the following items. Now there is a huge difference between both of them, friends. When they say after debiting the following items, means they are the items which are going to come next, they are already there in the part of the P&L. They are already there in the P&L. It is already posted in the P&L. Means the net profit which is given, that is after giving effects to the debits and the credits. But over here, if they give you before debiting and credit, it means the following paragraphs, the following points which are going to come, the effect of those points are yet not given in the net profit. So, if you see the questions of institute, majority of the times they are giving this type of questions after debiting or crediting the following items. But friends, always be very aware. Sometimes they can also twist the situation and they can give you the net profit before debiting the following items or crediting the following items. Now in this question I have kept after, so we are going to solve as if it is everything is after debiting and crediting, correct? So now what they have done is they have given you 10 adjustments. Now from these adjustments you have to identify which is an expense, which is an income. And if it is an expense, then it must be there, the effect must be given on the debit side. If it is an income, the effect must have been given on the credit side. Now this knowledge is expected from us, that if it is an expense, it must have been debited, and if it is an income, it must have been credited. Friends, before we go ahead, let me discuss a few things with you. See, whenever you are solving sums on the paragraph form, what you should do is, there are two steps of solving the sum. The first step is we have to analyze the question. Now friends, whenever you read the question, whether it is in T form or paragraph form, there are only three things which you have to take care. Yes, only three things. You have heard absolutely correct. Only three things when you are analyzing the question. The first is analyze whether it is an income. The second is analyze whether it is an expense. And the third is analyze whether it is a part of your chapter 6 reduction. So friends, the question may be in T form or the question may be in paragraph form. But when you read the question, you have to analyze that the information may be of the income or the expense or chapter 6 reduction. If it is an information about your income, then you have to check which head of income, taxable or exempt. If the information is about expenses, then what you have to do is in question number 1, you have to check whether it is a business expense or a personal expense, whether the expense is allowed or not allowed, whether it is an expense of some other heads of income. So friends, if you are able to do this much, income expense chapter 6A, income expense chapter 6A, income expense chapter 6A, income expense chapter 6A, if you are able to do this very well, then 50% of the problem is solved. And then what we have to do is we have to do presentation. How are you supposed to do presentation? I'll teach you in the video. Okay, friends. So let us start. So now, friends, when we are going to read this question further, what should be there in your mind is whether the adjustment is income or whether it is an expense or whether it is related to chapter 6. These three things you should constantly have in your mind when you are doing this question number 1. All right. Let us start. The net profit is 28 lakhs and it is after debiting the following items. Debiting or crediting. All right, start. First adjustment, income tax paid on non-monetary perquisites provided to the employee. Friends, income tax paid. So obviously income tax is an expenditure which has been debited. But friends, while solving our sum, the income tax component is not allowed as a deduction. So now what is this income tax paid on non-monetary perquisites? So friends, in salaries, we have studied that the employer gives a lot of perquisites to employees. Now what happens is, there are many perquisites which are taxable. There are many perquisites which are taxable. If it is a taxable perquisite, the employee has to pay tax on that, correct? So sometimes there are some employers, they will give the perquisite. If it is a taxable perquisite, there is a particular tax component. The employer will also bear the income tax. Yes, you have heard it right. The employer is first giving the perquisite, then there is a tax on that perquisite, and the boss is ready to compensate and pay the tax also on that perquisite on behalf of the employee. So he is giving two things. First the perquisite, then the income tax on that perquisite. So the income tax component which the boss is paying on behalf of the employee, this is income tax paid on non-monetary perquisite which is provided to employees. So friends, income tax is not allowed as a deduction. Now whether Miss Rashmi is paying income tax which is on her profit, or whether she is paying income tax which is related to his employees, which is on behalf of his employees, it doesn't matter. But income tax is not allowed as a deduction. Legal fees incurred in defending the title to the factory premises. So legal fees is allowed as a deduction. Interest paid on arrears of goods and service tax. So friends, goods and service tax is allowed as a deduction, and interest on goods and service tax is also allowed as a deduction. Cash payment of rupees 10,000 made on 10th of October to a supplier toward purchase of raw material. Now friends, everyone knows that cash payment above 10,000 is not allowed. But what I have done is I have kept exactly 10,000. So if the cash payment is exactly 10,000, this is allowed. Rent received from letting out of vacant land. Now friends, what they are saying is the net profit is after debiting and crediting the items, right? So we are going to analyze into three parts: income, expense, and chapter 6 here. So now see, rent received. So obviously this is income. This must have been credited in your P&L account. So when they say rent received from letting out of a vacant land, this is not my business. What is my business? My business is manufacturing and sale of drugs and pharmaceuticals. Letting out of vacant land is not my business. So this is not business income. So whenever it is not a business income, we do cross mark. Whenever something is related to business, we do tick mark. So what I say to my students in class is tickdi, chokdi. So tickdi means tick mark and chokdi means cross mark. Correct. So now friends, this letting out of vacant land is not my business income. Then it is my income from other sources. Yes, you have heard it right. Income from other sources and not house property. If it was rent received from letting out of house property is four walls and a roof. But this is a vacant land. This is ICAI's favorite adjustment, whether it is in CA inter or whether it is in CA final. Favorite adjustment, vacant land rent out. Then it would be income from other sources. Arrears of rent received in respect of house property. Now they are talking about house property, but they are talking about arrears of rent. Arrears, you remember in house property, rent which was not received in the past because of some dispute or maybe some other reasons. So arrears of rent received. What are we studying? What are we studying? We are studying debit and credit of the following items. See, in question 1, when you are analyzing the question, you should always remember what you are doing. So there are various debits and credits which we are analyzing, right? So we are analyzing one of the debits or the credits over here. Now since it is saying rent received, then it means it is an income. Over here it is saying arrears of rent received, then again this is an income part item. And now it is saying in respect of house property which was let out in earlier years. Why are they giving information of earlier years? We are computing everything for 2025-26. Let us see. Which was not charged to tax in earlier years, rupees 2 lakh. Oh, so what they are trying to say is that in earlier years there was some dispute, there was some arrears which was not taxed earlier, and they have received now in 25-26. How did I understand this? After debiting and crediting the following items. So they have credited this item in the P&L account. Now they are saying the property was sold in 2020. So it means Rashmi is not the owner of the property now. See, now this is something which is very, very important. Friends, let us study arrears of rent in house property. What is the rule? The rule is it is taxable in the year in which it is received. If it is received in 25-26, it would be taxable in 25-26. And second rule is ownership is not important when this arrear is received. Arrears of rent is taxable in IFHP. Repeat I said. Arrears of rent is taxable in IFHP even if the assessee does not remain the owner of the house. Since the arrears is related to house, there might be some dispute in earlier years. It will now also be taxable in IFHP only, even though the assessee is not the owner. So friends, we are supposed to do two things. First, we will do chokdi over here. We will do cross mark. Why cross mark? Because this is something not related to business. What are you doing in your total income sums? We are doing tick, cross, correct? So this is something which is not related to business. So first, if it is not related to business, you have to do a cross and then we will write income from house property, correct? Next, cash payment made to a supplier rupees 90,000. Cash payment 90,000 on 15th August. Banks were closed due to Independence Day. Oh, cash payment made on a day when banks are closed. Is this allowed? Can I make cash payments if the banks are closed? Is this covered in my Rule 6 DD? Friends, no. Even if banks are closed, you are not allowed to make cash payments of more than 10,000 to any person on the same date to the same person. If you are making payment to a place where there is no banking facility, that is still covered in Rule 60D. But friends, this is not covered in Rule 60D. Even if banks are closed, cash payment is not allowed. So this 90,000 is going to be not allowed. This is something which is very, very important. So if you see what I have done is in this cash payment, I purposely kept exactly 10,000. And this cash payment I purposely kept, banks were closed due to Independence Day. So I wanted you to understand these two things. Next, interest paid to bank towards a loan taken to pay income tax. Income tax is not allowed. Interest on income tax is not allowed. Penalty for income tax is not allowed. And interest paid on a loan which was taken to pay income tax, this is also not allowed. So anything which is related to income tax is not allowed. Then next is opening and closing stock of the year when 90 and 1,17,000. Again, always remember we are talking about the debits and the credits. So all these items from 1 to 10 all are my debits and the credits. Okay. Now over here interest paid was returned. So it is an expense. Cash payment is returned. So it is an expense. Correct. The opening and the closing stock. So opening stock, if it is debited, it must be on the trading account, debit side. Closing stock on the credit side. Okay. Of the year when 90,000 and 1,17,000 respectively, and they were undervalued. What have they given, friends? They were undervalued. So friends, what you can do is when they are writing undervalued, what you can do is you can consider this as unrecorded. So the opening and the closing stock are unrecorded to the extent of 10%. They are unrecorded to the extent of 10%. Correct, friends? So now this is unrecorded. Now opening stock, is it my business item? Yes. Is closing stock my business item? Yes. So one is my debit side item, one is my credit side item. Both are unrecorded and they are unrecorded by 10%. So it means only 90% of the opening stock is recorded and only 90% of the closing stock is recorded. So what we are supposed to do is we are just supposed to do cross multiply and find out which is that 10% which was unrecorded. Correct. So see friends, what I have done is if my opening stock is 90,000 and it is unrecorded by 10%. So if you assume that the proper amount is 100, as the base is 100, it is undervalued by 10%. It means the amount which is recorded is only 90%, right? So what we do is we find out the balance 10%. Similarly in closing stock is unrecorded by 10%. So if the base amount is 100, under recorded by 10%, so 90. So this is also 90. So what we do is we find out the unrecorded amount and both are related to my business. So this is my unrecorded business expense because it is opening stock, debit side item is an expenditure item, and this is my unrecorded business income. Now how are you supposed to show this in your statement? We will do in the next few minutes. All right, first we are analyzing the question. Income expense chapter 6, income expense in chapter 6. All right, let's start. So friends, now this is my 10th adjustment which I am doing in 2018. So friends, have you realized that many times in the question they are giving you information of some past years? Many times the information is of no use, but sometimes it is very useful. So as a student, you should be able to identify when is the information useful and when is the information not useful. So, I stay in Mumbai. So in Mumbai, there is one area, Dahisar. So I used to go to my final CA classes in Dahisar, and my FR and AFM was done by Ribello sir way back in 2009. So my sir Ribello sir used to always tell me that Pratik, in CA exams, or you can say in all professional exams, there will either be lack of information or excess information. So this is something which I regularly tell to all my students also, that CA exams or all professional exams will either have lack of information. Now, what you do when there is lack of information? So sometimes we find out if there is some hidden adjustment, if something which is hidden, something which is given indirectly, or we have to make assumptions. And sometimes there is also excess information. So why is this examination difficult? Because the information which is given in the question is not always ekdam damn perfect. Sometimes there is excess, sometimes there is lack of information. So we have to read the question very well and understand whether this information is useful, whether it is related to expense, income, chapter 6a, we have to ignore, etc. etc. So now this 10th adjustment is in 2018, Miss Rashmi paid GST to the government in 2018, okay, as per the relevant due date. All right. So GST is a business expense. It was paid in 2018 and it was paid as per the relevant due date also. All right. So they must have taken the deduction, the expense deduction in 2018 only. All right. See, on the levy being challenged in the High Court. Levy being challenged in the High Court means Rashmi was not happy with this GST payment. She felt that this GST should not have been paid, but maybe on the advice of chartered accountant she would have paid, or maybe the officer would have forced her to pay, whatever. But she challenged the levy in the High Court. So she was of the opinion that this should not be paid. So she's challenged in the High Court. The court held that the collection is illegal. Oh, the court gave the decision in the favor of Rashmi, and government in February 2026 refunded the amount of rupees 3 lakh. So if you see my original question, which is there in Telegram, this 3 lakh was not printed over there. So, I have written it. So whenever you take the printout of this question, you also write this 3 lakh, please. So now see, this is something which is very important. So there are some students who might not be able to understand this. See, I tell you very simple. In very simple words, this is GST refund. This is GST refund, friends. Now, sir, how did you identify this is GST refund? See, you have to read the question very well. What they are saying in 2018, GST was paid as per the relevant due date, correct? So it means it is an expense of that year. Now the levy means in simple words tax. Being challenged in the High Court, the court told it is illegal and the government in 2026 refunded the amount to Rashmi. So it means this is GST refund received by Rashmi. Now, very interesting. What are we doing? We are doing the following is either debited or credited to the P&L. Now you tell me GST when it is paid, it is an expense. But when it is refunded, then obviously this is an income. And if it is an income, it must have been credited to the P&L. So now friends, GST refund is your business income. So this is tick. So we are not going to discuss theory in detail, okay? So this sum I'm solving for those students who are already well versed in theory. They have already studied their theory, all right? So I'm not discussing why is this business income. I'm assuming that you know that. Now friends, last point, and then we are going to start with the sum solving, okay? Now friends, see what I have done is I have purposely kept the last point as a separate paragraph. So what might happen in your exam is sometimes they may write over your additional information. So additional information means this is not debited or credited to P&L. Very, very important. Very, very important. Something very, very important. Additional information means this is not debited or credited to P&L. Very important. Or what they might do is they have said debited and credited the following items. Then they have said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then leave some space and give this information separately. Then in that case also you have to understand that if the information is given separately and also numbering as such is not given, then this might be an extra information. Something which is not debited or credited to P&L. So this is so tough, sir. How would you understand this? See, if you're not able to understand, if you get confused in exam, you can always write your note. You can always write your assumption. 99.99999% what I see AI does is they write additional information. See, if they have written additional information, now there is no confusion. Then 100% this is an information which is not debited or credited. But purposely, what I have done is I have not written that word additional information, but I have presented it very separately and not given it a point number. If I would have given this as point number 11, then definitely this would have been part of debit and credit only. But I have not purposely kept point number 11. I have kept this as a separate paragraph. Miss Rashmi paid royalty in India to a foreign company. So they are talking about some expense amounting to 3 lakh in 2022. So friends, have you understood what I have done in this question? I have purposely taken a lot of adjustment which are related to past but will have an effect in 25-26. Related to past but have an effect in the year 25-26. So royalty is paid to a foreign company 1st May 2022, which was disallowed by the officer since tax was not deducted. This you already know that if you make a payment to a non-resident and if the payment is made without deducting TDS, the 100% amount is not allowed. The company deducts and paid the tax on the said amount of royalty in this year. So if you remember, payment made to resident without deducting TDS, 30% not allowed. Payment made to non-residents without deducting TDS, 100% not allowed. In 2022, it was paid without deducting TDS. So it means in 2022, it must have been not allowed. But if you remember, the 30% not allowed and 100% not allowed, what we have discussed is it is only a permanent disallowance. It is only a temporary disallowance. It is only a temporary disallowance. 30% temporarily disallowed, 100% temporarily disallowed. What it means is that whenever the payment is made in future, in that year, the deduction would be allowed. So in 2022, it was not allowed, but the company deducted and paid the tax at source on the said amount of royalty. So it means they have paid right now, because in 2022 it was not paid. Now it is paid. So now if it is paid, then it means this 3 lakh is an unrecorded. Why I am saying unrecorded? Because I have given it as a separate information. Business expense, not a part of debit and credit, not a part of debit and credit. This is unrecorded business expense. So friends, this was my entire discussion of the question first. I'm 100% sure you would have enjoyed the adjustments, because what I have done is I have taken care of small points over here. Now let us do with the presentation. Now friends, whenever you are doing presentation, what you have to do is you have to identify the different heads of income. You have to identify the different heads of income, because what happens in total income is they will always not give you all the 5 heads. Salary, house property, business, capital gain, other source, all 5 heads are very rarely asked. Sometimes there will be 2 heads, sometimes 3 heads, but all 5 heads are very rarely asked. So when you read the question, first identify how many different heads of income are there. So friends, in this question, how many different heads of income were there? So see, obviously business is there, correct? Then IFOS, income from other sources, is there, and income from house property is there. Did you find any adjustment related to capital gain? No. Did you find any adjustment related to salaries? No. So it means Rashmi is having 3 types of income: business, other source, and house property. Now why is this very important? Because friends, whenever they are asking you compute total income, the first thing is you should be ready with such type of statement of total income. Now friends, when I am checking test series paper in JB Learnings, when I am checking a lot of certified copies nowadays, I have seen there are several students who are first writing working notes and then writing the main answer. Friends, this is not the correct sequence of giving your answer. First, you should always show the main answer and then your supported workings. People are doing exactly opposite. first they are writing working note 1, working note 2, working note 3, and then they are writing the main answer. No, the main question, or you can say the main answer, should be presented first, and then it should be supported by workings. So what is the main question over here? The main question is compute total income. So if the question is asking total income, first you should prepare the statement of total income. Correct? There are three heads: house, property, business, other source. Now friends, what I have done in this question is, business I am going to do one working. Business I am going to do one working, but not for house, property and other source. House, property and other source I will present here only. Sir, why? For house, property, working is not compulsory. No, I am not saying that. Working is required only when the solution is very big. For house property, there is only arrears of rent. For other source, there is only rent from vacant land. So when there is no working required, no long solution, no big solution, why to waste time in writing everything in working note? Yes, of course, PGBP is something which is very big and main in this question. For that, we will prepare one, you can say, working note. So now in house property, you have arrears of rent. So what I am going to do is, in house property, I will write arrears of rent. And in IFOS, I'll write rent from vacant land. So, purposely I have not prepared the answers ready made. I'm purposely writing in front of you so that you also understand that how are we supposed to do all the workings. At least in first few sums, I am planning to do this type of working. Then if you feel comfortable, you can write in the comment box that yes, sir, now we are comfortable. Then what I can do is I will discuss the main adjustments. I might keep the, answers ready if you tell in the comments. Now friends, how much is the rent from vacant land? So friends, if you see, rent from vacant land is 1 lakh. Alright, so what we will do is rent from vacant land 1 lakh. So we will write 1 lakh. Now friends, in IFOS there is no concept of standard deduction as far as your vacant land is concerned. Correct. So I'll directly write 1 lakh in the outer column. Then friends, there is arrears of rent received and related to house property, rupees 2 lakhs. Alright, so over here there is rupees 2 lakh. Now this is related to house property. So what we will do is arrears of rent 2 lakh. But that we will write in the inner column. Why inner column? Because in arrears of rent you have standard deduction, if you remember. So then we have 30% standard deduction under section 24. So there is a standard deduction of 60,000, and therefore in the outer column we will write down 1,40,000. Correct. Now everything is about PGBP. Now in PGBP, what we are supposed to do is, since the question net profit is given. So friends, whenever net profit is given in the question, we know that we are supposed to solve the sum in indirect method. Indirect method. So, sir, are there two methods in PGBP? Yes, there are two methods of solving sums. One is indirect method and one is the direct method. So, direct method, yes. In direct method, you have to do only income minus expenses. Sir, when is direct method used? Direct method is used when that receipts and payment account is given, like similar to cash bank account. They have not given you net profit. They have also only given receipts and payment. For those type of questions, direct method is useful. And over here, when net profit is given, you have to do as per indirect method. What is indirect method? Indirect method means you start the sum with net profit, which in this question is 28 lakhs. And then what you do is, in business is you draw the format, write add expense not allowed. Now see friends, this you don't have to memorize. Your professor might have taught you some other wordings. Say for example, not allowed expenses or disallowed expenses or expenses which are not relating to business or expenses, anything is fine. So don't ratify this. This is fine. Okay. This is my style. Expense not allowed. Then less non-business items. Then less allowed but unrecorded business expenses. And then taxable unrecorded business incomes. So friends, what you do is, whenever you are solving someone business, Obviously, after reading the question, you get some idea about the size of the question. So what you can do is you can leave, you can say lines like this and keep the format ready. What is the benefit of doing this is that now when you read the question, whatever adjustments are there, you can directly fast start writing non-business items, expense not allowed. Because what happens in exams is all information is jumbled up. They don't give you all information ready made, right? They don't give you everything in one simple sequence. They give everything very mixed up. So in one question, they will give you this, then achanak say, then they will give you non-business items, then they will give you this, then they will give you this. So, those type of things are possible in your exams. So it is always better you keep a format like this ready. Give few lines. Now, sir, how many lines should I leave? See, that much maturity you have. So leave 5 lines, 6 lines, 8 lines, 10 lines. Even if you leave more lines and few of the lines are blank, ICI will not cut marks for that. Okay, don't worry. So, depending upon the size of the question, take one judgment and then leave some lines and then start writing. Okay. So, see, what I'm going to do is, so the first is income tax paid. So, I know income tax paid, I have done cross mark over here. It means this is expense which is not allowed. How much is income tax paid? 1 lakh. So, what I will do is, I'll write income tax paid 1 lakh. So this is my expense which is not allowed. So friends, what you are supposed to do is all your P&L debits in which you have done cross mark, all your P&L debits in which you have done cross mark, you will write it over here. Income tax 1 lakh. All right. Then what obviously when you will solve the sum, you will keep one printout or one mobile or one tablet with you so that you don't have to, do the screen up and down again and again. Then next, all these expenses which are tick, we are not supposed to do anything. Rent received, this effect we have already given. In income from other source. House property, this effect which we have already given. Cash payment made on Independence Day, this is not allowed, 90,000. So cash payment of 90,000. So what you are supposed to do is cash payment 90,000. All right. So this is my second expense which is not allowed. Then interest paid to bank related to income tax. Again, interest paid to banks 40,000 is not allowed. So interest on income tax 40,000. This is not allowed. So something which is not allowed, you will write it over here, right? Then next, opening stock and closing stock were undervalued. Now see, now you will understand what is the importance of keeping the format ready. Now they have said something is unrecorded. So see, unrecorded business expense, how much? 10,000. So now what I will do is, I will go to my allowed unrecorded business expense. I'll write opening stock and then I'll write 10,000. See, this is the benefit of keeping the format ready. If the format is ready, you can write it down, correct? So the sum, the sum will get solved very fast. Then closing stock, unrecorded business income, closing stock. So credit side item unrecorded, that is why it is an income. So the amount is 13,000. Okay, over here there are few students who always generally ask me, sir, that I have seen in several authors and several books that net effect is given of opening stock and closing stock. Sir, is it okay? Yet is it that is okay? ICAI also done net effect many a times. So even if you give net effect is okay, but I avoid doing that because sometimes only opening stock effect is required, sometimes only closing stock, sometimes it is overvalued, sometimes undervalued. So I avoid that. I always give two effects, one for opening stock and one for closing stock separately. All right, then friends, after you are done with that, the opening stock, closing stock, then this is already a tick one, so nothing to do for this. And then there is another unrecorded business expense of 3 lakh, the royalty paid. So what you are supposed to do is unrecorded business expense, royalty paid to non-resident foreign company. All right. So the royalty paid to non-resident foreign company 3 lakh. So that 3 lakh would be unrecorded business expense. Royalty paid, this is 3 lakh. So that's it. Then what we can do is we can just look at whether we have given all the effects. So yes, we have given effect to unrecorded business expense, GST refund is tick. We are not supposed to do. Undervalued effect is given, interest paid effect is given, cash payment effect is given, house property effect is given, other source effect is given, income tax paid effect is given. That's it. Acha, as far as additional depreciation is concerned, there was no additional depreciation or no asset, no plant and machinery related information. So this we did when we were analyzing the question, but then we realized it is of no use. So see, this is our question. So in this way you are supposed to, analyze the question, solve the question. I'm not doing the totaling right now. Totaling you can do it easily, that is not a big deal for you all. So friends, this was my first video. This was my first video on this total income series. Now in this video I obviously had to explain other things also, so that is why we could do only one question. But in my next video, what we will do is we will complete our question 1 as well as question 2. And in question 1, question 2 also, I am planning my level best to keep, some tricky adjustments. So along with your paragraph, some, practice, you will also be able to practice some good tricky adjustments. No new concepts, no new theory, but good tricky adjustments. All right. No if, no but, only but. All the best. Bye bye, everybody.